Welcome to Raw and Refined, the Gentleman's Hour, where we're going to have conversation with middle-aged black men about what's going on. We welcome you to listen, comment, and like, and hopefully encourage others to join for future conversations as well. We always like to start off with a toast, and with that toast, it's because we are gentlemen and we do it raw and refined.
So let's start out with our beverages, John, and before you jump on into it, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. So for me, my brothers, I just went simple. Started to enjoy this Sprite Zero Sugar. It's a cherry lime chill. It is yummy. Oh,
You say you like it a little bit?
Right.
just a tad bit.
So it's all right. It's all
It's
right.
alright, right?
All right. What you got, GK?
When I saw your can, I'm like, you can't possibly have the same thing I got. You see the color?
Wow.
I was like, what are the odds of this? But this is something I've discovered. So Modelo, the beer
Mm-hmm.
maker, a lot of people are starting to drink less beer. And so there are all these pre-made cocktail things. So Modelo,
Right.
which makes a good product, they have their own thing. It's called an agua frescas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a spiked water. It's, like there's a normal Mexican drink like this. So this particular one is watermelon. And
Okay.
it's not a lot of sugar in it. It's like very little alcohol, like 3-4%. So you won't get wasted. But has a nice taste to it.
Okay.
But these
I
are
gotta check that out.
these little pre-made cocktails kind of, you know, take away from the beer near for beer, and
Right.
then you get them
Mhm.
with little sugar in it. You don't hurt you too bad.
Mhm.
And you gotta it's that same kind of that feel of having a can in your hand type of, you
Exactly.
know. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. I get that. I'm doing I've got my standard. My go-to is it's water. It's water with a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of salt, and a little stevia. That's my homemade Gatorade elixir
Right.
that I
Get
do
that pep
about.
of energy, right?
Yeah, I do. So this is what, I don't know, 32 ounces. This
Yeah.
Yeti. I'm drinking water all day long, but I do at least two of these with the lemon juice in there and the salt and the stevia for the hydration.
Mhm.
That's what's up.
Yeah, yeah. So go ahead, JK. I mean, no, this is
Yeah.
JPC, and
JPC.
this is
Yo.
Right. All right. Well, good thing. Well, welcome back to Raw and Refined. Before we actually get into today's conversation, I wanted to start by reading a passage that I sent to my brothers here recently that's been sitting with me as we planned for this episode. It comes from Matthew 6, verses 2 through 4, and it reads, Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you. Again, that was from Matthew chapter 6, verses 2 through 4. And it really leads into our conversation today about service and service in the aspect of how it should go, or how, in this opinion of this episode, it should go without applause. And I think that as we get into the background of this conversation, we'll tend to see a little bit more about what we mean by that as well. So again, today we're talking about a season of our lives that happened long before we even thought of titles, degrees, or even truly the concept of what leadership really means as well. The years were 1984 to 1986, brother. Man, oh man. We were juniors, seniors, and we attended I'm going to say it, the greatest high
The
school, the Proviso East High School,
Pirates.
home of the Pirates. Say it with that bass. Home of the Pirates. There you go. There you go,
There
Rich.
you
That's
go.
what we talking about right there. But bruhs and fam and folks out there, man, that was really a time that was probably a true shaping of who I became as an adult, and I'll say probably influenced a lot of who we became later on in life as well. So during those years, we were having a conversation, and we realized that we all were in service related jobs. We were all in fast food at different places. And then some of us may have been involved with tutoring, student media outlets like the yearbook and newspaper. We were all playing sports at one point as well. And
Hmm.
then we were just trying to figure out who we were going to be. So I'll say that at least at that time, I felt there was more of the enjoyment, the freedom, the friendship, and probably just the connection, with each other and the school as well.
Hmm.
Not even again thinking about what is this going to do for me or us later on in life. So to start it off, I worked at McDonald's, the infamous Yellow Arches
You sure did.
coming up, man. And as I was thinking back on it, it started off, a fry guy, then moved back to the grill, and then up to the cashier, and then got to be what they call a crew chief, which was one who helped to somewhat manage what was going on at certain levels of the restaurant. And then at one point, they even asked if I wanted to be an associate manager at McDonald's. And this was coming, of course, near the end of our time in high school. And I was like, man, I don't think I want to be an assistant manager. I mean, I'm like, shoot, I'm trying to go to school, man. I'm trying to, I'm ready to head off to college and do some things, man. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, dang, maybe I should. Because then I might be able to use that, later on, and I already have
Mm-hmm.
a position there as well, but just decided to leave it at that. But at that time, what else were we doing? We were still in school. We were in college prep courses, throughout those years. I was playing tennis for Proviso at that time, and on the yearbook staff as well. And other clubs that we were involved
I
with.
was about to say
So
you were on chess club too, weren't you?
chess club as well, brother. So we were
Yeah.
Hmm.
doing that. French club. We were involved. But it didn't seem like it felt heavy. You know what I mean? There were
Hmm.
times, of course, all of us we know. I might open up on a Saturday or Sunday type deal. I might be closing it down on a Friday night or something as well. But yet working some even after school or after practice or after a club meet. We'd have chess competitions that we'd have to go to at times too. Hit that. But then again, we still had to get that work done for school as well too. But at that time, it didn't seem heavy. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But then realizing that all of that was service related in some way, or fashion. So that's just to kick it off. But GK, what about you, my friend? Why don't you explain some of what you were
Well,
involved in?
so my job was I worked in fast food. Anybody familiar with Maywood knows about Al's Drive-In. And
Man, ours
that's was
was the spot. That was the
mm,
hangout. That was right across the street from high
right across the
school.
street from the high school.
Little.
And for me, it was cool because I actually lived around the corner and I actually started working there when I was still in grammar school because we would go there. It's around the corner. So me and my brother and my sister later would go up there and get our regular stuff. And my stepfather, rest in peace, he went up there one day and was basically like, they spend so much money up here. Give my son a job. And so my first job was sweeping up the parking lot. And that's how I first
Mm-hmm.
started working there. And then later on, they put me on fries. And it was a family owned establishment. But it's funny, it originally was owned by Al, as a white guy. I think Al was
Mm-hmm.
Polish, I believe. And then he sold it to this Asian family from Thailand. And they're the ones who eventually I kind of like started working on the food side of
Chuck.
things. Chuck, my
Yep,
man,
Chuck.
Chuck. And just like you, John, I started out
Rest
on
in
the
peace.
fries. Started out on the fries, and eventually they let me get on the grill, and that place would be jumping and popping, you know. But it
Yes,
was,
sir.
and I hated it at times, but it was some of the most fun I ever had, you know, with a job or you know anything. The stream of people was so great all the time, and of course, you know, when you're a teenager and it's girls coming in all the time,
Right, right,
you get you get to you know
right,
practice your hollering skills, you know.
There you
Because
go,
you right
brother.
on the spot. You know, you got to take
right,
their order and then yeah, anyway. But that
right,
was
right.
such an important thing. Funny, like I don't use dishwashers. I wash by hand even to this
Yeah.
Me
day
too. I
because
do
of
too.
having worked at Al's where we did
Yep,
everything by
yep.
hand, right? I'm like, why would I wash and then put it in the dishwasher? Just
Right,
wash it.
right.
Well,
So
I worked at Taco Bell. You know, we did both. We had hand washing stuff and we had some machines for some of the other things that was, you know, some of the big steaming kind of. But yeah, no, I get you there, brother. It's just ingrained in us. You know, for a long time, I had to realize that you really should use pot holders for certain things because I'd
yeah,
gotten so used to just grabbing pots and pans and,
Right.
you know, and the water thing that, you know, for when you're cleaning at the
Yeah.
big sink, that thing, man, it had these two big bolts on them that if you weren't careful, they got up to like 900 degrees when you had the hot water on.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so, you know,
Yes.
you scald some skin off a few times, you get used to it. And then when
yeah.
the new people come, you don't say nothing and you watch them
Right.
do it now. But that was what they did. I'm sorry to jump in on you, GK. I
No,
don't know.
man.
But I mean, we all loved Al's.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
spot,
it's a
it
popular
was
spot.
it was a popular spot. It was literally right across the street from the high school. Everybody went there. Greg worked there, and so you know. I was in there all the time. Chuck, rest in peace. One of the owners, you know, whenever I walked in there, he didn't, I don't know if he knew my real name, but he
You
just
probably didn't.
decided that I was Greg's brother. Cause
Greg Kelly,
I was there.
brother.
And so whenever I walked in, he would point at me and say, Greg Kelly, brother, Greg Kelly, brother.
Those days that were a lot of fun. They would drive me crazy. But they became like family to me. I, you know, worked on my tie from that. I helped them pass the U.S. Constitution test. It was helping the kid learn how to read. And then funny enough, Ronald Reagan gave amnesty in 84, 85. And so their need to prep for the Constitution, they did, after all the work we did, he didn't need to do it anymore. But that
Right.
was just the experience that we had working at Al's. But then, of course, you know, the school stuff. You know, I was on the track team. I was editor of the pageant, which was our high school newspaper. And I was just reflecting, as you were talking, John, about not feeling stressed. It actually was kind of a lot for a 15, 16-year
Mhm.
old to be doing at that time. But I don't recall being too stressed out about it either.
Right.
But it was definitely, and I, you know, shout out to Proviso East for giving us access to all of that stuff. A
Yes.
newspaper, right?
Yes.
Track team. And that just, you know,
Yes.
all of that stuff was really, really important in my development.
Yeah.
Yeah, John on the yearbook staff, you know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, even though
Yeah,
he
my
sat
boy
there and he
John Moore gave me one of my most humiliating moments in history because of the pageant. His interview with me and the picture that was chosen, whoever the editor was, I got beef with. Cause that
dude,
picture, boy, woo.
at least that was in the paper. They got me immortalized in the yearbook with the wrong name. I'm like, you know, on the basketball team, I'm
Right.
looking there in
Right.
the
Right.
lineup,
Right.
and they got John Holloway. There's three
Right.
Holloways in the school. Two of
Right.
them are me and my brother, and then Johnny, who was not related, same name.
Right.
And so I'm like, I look in there and I'm like, what is this? And John was like, I'm sorry, bro, I didn't do the sports.
Right. 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 Right.
He passed
Right.
the buck quick. I went to the coach, Love, what you doing? He was like, I thought your name was Johnny. That's all he always did was yell my last name. Damn it, Holloway!
They didn't exactly know what your first name was.
Apparently not.
Right.
Even now, I rarely ever call you Rich.
Right.
Right.
They always called you by your last name. Shoot.
Some variation of it, right?
Right. Right.
Hollis.
So, like you guys were saying, I was on the basketball team, I was on the chess club. So I got 2 varsity letters in high school, and unfortunately, over the years, I've lost them both. I have varsity letters in basketball and chess. I don't know where they are at some point, but I still have my trophy from when I took like 4th in the state on my board on chess. So I still have that trophy, or
Mm-hmm.
the mom's has it. So I play basketball, I play chess, and as John mentioned, tutored some elementary school students in math and writing. That just kind of started. So, yeah, to that, John had me in the yearbook for that. So they did get my name right for that.
Yep.
And I had a picture of me in the yearbook with me working with Log. That's all I'm going to call. That was what we called him, his nickname. It wasn't my first job at Taco Bell.
Mm-mm.
You were at McDonald's, Greg was at Al's, and I did Taco Bell. That was my food service experience. And again, I think it
Mm-hmm.
was hugely important. My very first job, however, was before that, because
Right.
John was
Kitty
with
land.
me when I got the Taco Bell job, because we were just going in there and the service was
Yep.
horrible. I complained to the
Yep.
manager about the poor service, and she was like, well, if you
Right.
can do a better job, why don't you come on up in here? And so then
Right.
I came, interviewed, and got the job. What you were talking about, John, they wanted me to stay on when we were graduating from high school. They tried to convince me not to go to college. They
Mm-hmm. Yep.
wanted to convince me to be a manager, and told me
Yep.
how much money I would make
Right.
and this and that. But I was like, nope, I'm out the spot. I'll
Right.
catch you later. But my very first job was as a kiddie land
Kitty land, brother. Yes.
at the amusement
Golly.
park.
Right.
I was
Yes.
I started out like Greg started out at Al's. I started out sweeping up,
Mm-hmm.
and this was back, and so this was like around, I was 15 or something, so I wasn't even 16 yet. It was a seasonal job, so they didn't have to pay you minimum wage. I was
Right.
making
Mhm.
$1.85 an hour. I was making
Wow.
$1.85 an hour, but it was all discretionary money, right? I didn't have any responsibilities in life at that point. I
Where were
worked
the
that
labor
job so
unions? Where
hard,
were they at? Right.
Right. Organizing the youth.
Right.
I'm walking around with that little thing, sweeping up, and
Yes.
then eventually
Mm-hmm.
I got to operate rides. And so, I operated, the small roller coasters, the carousels, all of that kind of stuff. So that was an incredible experience. All kinds of cool experiences came out of that. But again, that was another service-based type of job. It was, we were serving the public, and the public is full of evil, horrible people. But you
Yes.
learn how to navigate
Right.
that and deal with it. So yeah, it was again an interesting time of life. And like you said, we had boundless energy. I didn't feel stressed out about it because I think, for one, I think the school part we handled very efficiently.
Right.
Anyway, a part of the blessing, we were, like you said, we were in honors classes.
Mm-hmm.
We were excited about school in ways that I don't know if some people were, or if a lot of students were. We like to go to class. We like to learn. We were nerds in many respects, right?
Right.
So
We
we were
were.
cool nerds. So I think
Man.
I enjoyed school in many respects that I don't know that others did. I struggled with some of the social stuff, but the educational,
Yeah.
academic stuff, that part was fun.
It's just funny. It's like
Exactly.
some of it is kind of in waves as I think about it, because I definitely had like a fairly busy social life somehow on
Mm-hmm.
top of all of that. That's when I first
Mm-hmm.
started, really digging house music and the little house
Mm-hmm.
clubs and group we had and all of that. But I would say out of all of those things, track was probably the thing that took the most energy, and I probably had the
Mm-hmm.
most sort of emotional commitment to, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because we had a hard ask for a coach, and you
Yeah.
never wanted to
Yeah.
embarrass yourself. So
Right.
I loved practice. I was the best athlete ever in practice. It was during the
Mm-hmm.
meets that I didn't always perform my best, but it was really one of the things that helped make me who I am today. Just that experience of being terrified but having to perform. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
case with all of those things. Like kind of like being like really nervous about it, but over time learning how to not let that fear sort of stop me from at least trying.
Mm-hmm.
No, exactly, brother. So, this is just giving a little insight to, again, this conversation today. And, as we said, these were things that we did. These were things that we enjoyed for the most part doing. Yeah, every moment has its moments where you like, man, I'm tired of this. I don't know if I want to keep doing this. But yet we finished it out. You know what I'm saying? We did it. We stuck with it. We made it the best that it can be. But we also did it quietly. As the reading went, there, we weren't looking for the trumpets. We weren't looking for the to be just shouted out or whatever type deal. But we did,
Just
and,
doing it.
and just doing it. And again, it's surprising how we're have evolved into roles now that are service oriented as well
Hmm.
too, and still, though we are achieving levels within our roles and professions, we're still not out there like, hey, look at
Look at
me
me.
type deal. We do it because I believe, we all love what we do, and a lot of that is just service. So we're going to go ahead and get into our first segment of this, the season of formation.
Hmm.
And we're going to go back a little bit to the mid 80s. We got to remember, bros, like you said, GK, this was the time when house music was starting. Hip hop was hitting it at that same time, at least in the Chicagoland area. I don't believe we had any cell phones. I know we didn't have any cell phones. I don't know if there
No.
was something out there. I can't remember at that time, but we didn't have it.
Right.
Cleopatra Jones had a phone in her car,
Okay, that right. But
so
that
they
lasted
they
5 minutes
existed.
if you were good, right? Type deal. We didn't have any internet, Google.
Yeah.
So with all that we were doing work wise, sports wise, extracurricular wise, if we
Oh,
had
the phone
research
had
stuff we
like a
had to do,
500-foot cord on it in most homes,
right,
right?
right, right, right. So you can walk around
These
the
young
whole
people, they
house
don't even understand that now,
talking,
correct?
right, right,
And it
right,
was a
right,
big deal when you got three-way calling or
right,
someone
Call
calling you. Hold
waiting.
on, somebody calling my other line. Remember that?
right. Hold on, right.
Hold on. That was a
And the
big
parents like,
deal.
you need to get off that phone.
Man, my folks would get call waiting. They would get call waiting. We was
Yeah,
like about a
call waiting
decade
was a
late.
big deal, man.
Yeah,
That's what it was called,
I had
call
to
waiting.
Call waiting.
I
That's
had to
it.
go off to college and get call waiting, man.
Well, and then think about it. Then if we had papers due that needed some research, we either had to go to those Encyclopedia Britannicas that we had, or we had to go to the
To the
library,
library.
Dewey
you
Decimal
know,
System, brother.
and all of that still while holding down, this other stuff as well. But that was the time we were in, and for us, hey, it was a great time, doing it all. So, what do you remember about about that time, Rich?
You know, like I said earlier, so it was a great time in terms of, I was excited about learning. I was excited about doing all those different things. Basketball was a huge part for me because, as the most legendary basketball high school in the nation,
That's right.
those might want to try and debate it, but that would be a mistake because we can get empirical data that's going to show
That's
that
right.
we've got the most NBA players in history, right? During the
Right.
period from like 2000 to 2010, there was a proviso we was pirating almost
Yep.
every final, either player or coach, anyway,
No, that's
I
important.
digress.
That's why I
I
never
digress.
played basketball. Play it.
That's
It was
right. That's
important.
right. That's right.
And see, that's why I was so excited, right? Because like Michael Jordan, I got cut my freshman year. I got cut my sophomore year. I didn't make the squad until I was a junior because I kept
Mhm.
growing, kept getting better. And so I finally made the squad because to become part of this legendary program was significant. And so I enjoyed that. Yeah, I remember when we were in, was it junior year or senior year when we were coming up towards the, I'll say playoffs generically, but at that point we had these hats that said PE Hoopers on them, and
Mhm.
they literally let us walk around school during the school day, during the school year with our hat on in the building,
Right.
you know,
Right. Right.
because
Major no.
Right.
Right. But, that was sanctioned at that moment because that's how important
Right.
basketball was to the school. But just as important was track. I mean, Greg was another. I mean, we were blessed to go to a school that had really great athletics
Yes.
and athletes, right?
Yes.
21 blocks. Maywood's tiny little spot. It's not just Maywood. John wasn't in Maywood.
Right.
Just the concentration of talent in this that went through the school, we could have another podcast that was just
Right.
about that. I mean, Greg ran and he talked about how hard ass his coach was, but they were producing Olympic athletes, not
Right.
just college or professional.
Right.
No, they were producing
Exactly.
Olympic athletes, right? Same in wrestling, right?
Right. Yep.
Right. I mean, we could throw all kinds of different directions. We went through periods where we sucked in football, but
Yep.
even before that, I mean, we go way back and throw out a name like, what's his name? Green Bay Packer, Nitschke or
Ray
whatever,
Nitschke.
Nitschke.
Yep.
Right. We go way back. All right. So I've gone way off topic, getting all caught up in Proviso East. But what I'm saying was that during that time, basketball was a huge part of my life. And so I know during junior and senior year, the period we're talking about here, was very busy. I didn't get to go to Paris with you guys with the French club because it was during the basketball season, and the coach was like, "Nope, you can't go.
Mm-hmm.
You got to choose." And I'm like, I was doing that. I was working. I was tutoring. I was hanging out with my friends, doing all that kind of stuff. So it was busy, but it was just that time. I think we were all. You didn't think about it. It was just what you did, right? We didn't know anything else. We just did what we were supposed to do. We went to school. We engaged in all the stuff that was there, that was going on, and we lived I think, a relatively happy life growing up. I mean, we had the typical trials and tribulations of middle class
Right.
to lower middle class to, depending on what day of the week and when the check hits, to
Right.
to broke class, right?
Right.
Families.
How
right?
much overtime Pops got? All that.
Right.
There was all kinds of realistic fluctuations like that, things that we didn't even notice or know about a lot of what was going on because we were just living life. We were blessed to have access to cars.
Yep.
John drove us all over the hemisphere.
And the sun was a Sunfire? Sunbird?
The Sunbird GT.
Pontiac Sunbird.
Sunbird GT. Yeah.
GT.
Yep.
Yeah. But
and
yeah, it was,
you taught me how to drive a stick. Remember, you used to practice the stick.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
It was like probably not a dull moment for us back then, as I reflect on it, right? So people often say kids, they say that they're bored these days, and I think there's something to be said for that because I look back on that time and I don't think of myself as having been bored because we were doing so many different things, right?
Man, and then I was blessed to live on a block with, there were probably about 10 other kids in the same age group or right around that age group. So, I mean, we had a built-in basketball game. We had a built-in football game, whatever, just on my block. Because it was so many of us, we had crab apple fights till somebody got busted in the dome with one that wasn't that ripe, and and that might shut it down for the day. You get hit with one that felt like a rock, as opposed to one of those ripe ones that just bust. This was my childhood. This was, hey, what you said? This is the season of formation. That's what we was doing.
That's right.
Maury got Kelly from across the street. Explosion. We ain't using last names.
Right.
But it was just this was the wonder years, right? All of that.
Yeah.
We're growing, we're learning. Greg mentioned earlier, developing we'll just say his communication style. So it was a good time. We met you cats. 82, right? So this is early on in what has become this decades long thing, right? We said this time period is 84 to 86. The three of us met as freshmen in 82. So
actually I was a little later to that. You all were all in class together, like Charles and all y'all. See, you all were smart in everything, like math, which I was not smart in. So you all were like in Algebra Plus and all that stuff together. It wasn't
that
until
was
like
freshman
sophomore
year, but
year.
You
were in the freshman class with Jarbija.
You're right.
Well, yeah, in English. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
We
But
had
we were in, you were
drop.
in, yeah,
Yeah,
that's when
we
yep,
were in
that's
there
right.
Yeah,
That's
that
with
was
the
right.
when
sleeping in
ET came.
class,
ET
and
was
Yeah,
had come. He was asking, had everybody seen ET? And everybody had seen it but me. Everybody raising their hands. Yeah, who's seen ET? And I had to see it. And I'm over there looking like,
Right.
yeah, John,
Oh
why you gonna
man,
call me out, man? Say,
that's
yep,
right.
Rick
I'm
over
just
there
saying,
sleeping in
dog.
class.
I had to help
I know.
GK remember.
Thank you for that. Thank you. It was Charles that was not in our class. He
Right,
was in
Charles
the
wasn't in
other.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Right.
Charles wasn't in the English class with us. He was
Yeah.
in Algebra Plus with us, though.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
But yeah, that's where I started sleeping in class. That's when it started. It was in Algebra Plus. Me and Carrie, won't say no last names, but me and Carrie would close our books at 9 o'clock because what we started at 8:20, right?
Yeah, I think it
Class
was
started at
8:20,
8:20. Class went from 8:20 to 9:20 or whatever, and about
9:15, something like that. Yeah.
9:15. But about 9 o'clock every day, Carrie and I would close our books.
So maybe you were a bit oversubscribed, right? You was taught you
Right. Now, now that we think about it, right?
right.
Right. Maybe I was a little tired.
Man, golly.
I don't know though, because that was freshman year, and this is what we're talking about a junior and senior year.
Right.
I wasn't
right.
on the basketball team freshman year. I wasn't that stretched out. I didn't have all the
Man.
jobs and all of that. I guess I was just a little trifling as a freshman.
Staying up all
Hey,
night.
Exactly.
no, a trifling honor student. All right, get it right.
Right. That's true.
Facts.
That is true.
And I remember when we were seniors and when they were interviewing us for valedictorian, some people were surprised that I was in the room. Some of the faculty that didn't know me, but then another one said, "So you're the one that I heard about. You're the one that sleeps in every class, but still gets A's on
Right.
everything."
Right.
And I
Oh
was
my
like,
goodness.
"Wow."
That's me.
I was like,
Right.
"Yeah."
Right.
I was like, "Wow." So they all have. So they've. But then later on in life, and you end up working in academia and having those conversations with other faculty about students. And so I understand perfectly how that could happen.
Mm-hmm. I know,
How
isn't that
quickly,
something again?
how quickly that
And here you
conversation
are,
can
a
spread.
dean.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
At one of the online universities, right?
Well,
That's it.
you know,
Do
the
what I
thing
do
that
as I say, not what I do.
when we were like just thinking about the fast food stuff, I think that's partly what
Mm-hmm.
triggered the conversation because I'm fascinated by it. Obviously, the three of us did. But if you zoom out a little more, you think about the other guys that are kind of in our circle, a lot of them, it was fast food. They were working, obviously, service sector jobs, and people, that's where we would work. But the role of fast food and sort of that evolution and that experience in the service sector is just
And it was
fascinating.
growing at that same time,
Yep. Yep.
Its
Yep.
growth was expanding significantly during that time because we
But
were
And I think
shifting
one of
from
y'all mentioned how we had to work with all kind of people in this field as well, too. I mean, you had great folks, you had some not so great folks, but yet we also learned how to navigate and how to interact with all people as well, too, and provide them with service. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So,
Yep.
regardless of how they may have been, we still did what we had to do as part of our role and our job in doing so. And I think
in
that's,
most
again,
cases.
just helped us. Well, it might have always been at least that one or two episodes.
I
Somebody
do
got job.
remember one time walking out there, and this woman was out there with her very young kids. That's when I formed the opinion years ago that you shouldn't bring children to restaurants until they get to a certain age, or take them to Chuck E. Cheese and let them act the fool, but don't take them out. But then that's because I'm sitting there. This is Taco Bell. It's not a fine dining restaurant or anything by any stretch, right? But this woman is out there with her kids, and this baby is in the high chair. I mean, a baby, right? Just very young, just basically rubbing taco meat all in his face, not really eating anything. About 5% of the taco is going in his mouth. The rest of it is just going all over the place. And so I'm out there, my job at this particular moment is to sweep
Clean up.
up. And associates, we all did that, right? At one point or another. So I go out there and I saw this mess that had been created. I went and got the broom and the thing and I gave it to her. And I say, here you go. You need to take care of this since you're just sitting there making this mess. Not probably the most customer service aligned kind of
Probably
approach.
not.
but hey, so that's why I said most of the time.
But the thing about fast food, it that shyness, like, or sort of your natural
Right.
inclination to be a little shy and timid, kind of like you can't work in fast food and be successful at it, especially if
Right.
you have to
Yeah.
take orders and prepare the orders.
Right.
That's
Right.
a different requires a certain thing. We didn't have glass in front of us; it's just you
Nope,
Right.
and
none
the
of that.
customer,
You were right there.
Right. Right. That's true.
Right. Yeah.
and people
Yeah. The
mad
world
that
hadn't
the
gotten
food taken.
the jet. Right.
That's true though. That is true. But then, as we look at that time and being in that field of service too, for me, again, if we reflect a little bit on what we were also doing at that time, I think that by working in the food industry, we know that there is a playbook to that. There are processes to that. There's a system to how things are supposed to flow and how that's all
Mhm,
supposed to work as well. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
just carried over into our other aspects. For
mhm,
me, it was yearbook again and having to meet deadlines, having to go talk to people in order to get the interview for the page. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So again, it all worked together, but yet not really thinking about it,
right.
how all of that was pulling in together as well. But it all mattered. And I think for
Right.
whatever reason, I'm not saying, well, heck, I'll say it. Yeah, we were super. Hey, ain't no need in dimming our crowns there as well. But I would say that it didn't feel like we were super. It just meant that we were responsible. We were doing what we knew we had to do. And I think it was learning, is this the correct way to do it or not the correct way,
Mhm.
to do something and get it done. Because, I used to hate if I wasn't meeting a deadline and my yearbook advisor would be coming around, hey, where's your copy? Where's your, come on, John, we gotta get this together, where we at type deal. I didn't want to be singled out like that and getting it done. So I think it actually instilled in us that sense of responsibility from all sides of that, which helped to lead us to, again, who we are and what we're doing and how that responsibility still shows up to this day and being ready, being prepared when the moment hits as well.
That's wild. Yeah, that just in retrospect, nailing it, John, like you did. How they all sort of reinforced each other, like without us
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about it as something that we're planning. It just they're different, very different things, but they all kind of reinforced each other and set up a standard or something of a set of expectations that I
Mm-hmm.
think did
Life was
serve us
was
well.
doing a Mr. Miyagi on us. We didn't even
Mm-hmm.
realize it.
That's true. Simple wipe on, wipe off, not even realizing, what all that was going to impact, our lives later on type deal as well. So,
Soft skills development, a hugely important piece of that fast food process. Like you were saying, you're dealing with any and all kinds of people. You don't know what's going to be thrown at you in any moment. That could be the public, that can be coworkers. I think about my experience and that how different it was from yours, Greg, and that you were working for a family-owned business. Well, John and I were working for large corporations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or
Mm-hmm.
there might have been a franchise or there might have been a
mm-hmm,
company owned, but they still have those layers of policy and procedure and
mm-hmm,
these manuals that have been created and these trainings and this and that. And so there's that corporatization of this piece. But aside from that slight difference, family owned business, the structures that kind of go with that, the kind of behaviors that are going to be tolerated, not tolerated, expected, are going
mm-hmm.
to differ from in my situation where they're just hiring people off the street coming from all different walks of life and aren't necessarily gonna behave in the ways you might expect. So the employee experience could be weird, just like the public interaction experience could be weird. I think that probably was less of an issue for you. And I'm saying that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking as a high school student, right, about there was sexual tension in my job. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that existed for you, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Right.
yeah, it for
In
sure
your
did.
job, I'm like co-workers, right? I know it did with you in the public because you were right across the street from our high school. So every girl that went to our high school was rolling through there. And for the public that don't know, Greg had this voice when we were freshmen in high school.
Right.
I sounded like this. Hi, I'm Rich. And Greg was smaller, right?
Right. Right.
Hi,
Right.
I'm Greg. It was like,
Right.
what the?
My goodness.
But that soft skill piece I was talking about, right? That learning how to engage with people, that learning how to read nonverbal cues. I think that's one of the really important things because, in that context, you got all kinds of people that are coming in. Especially, I'm thinking about Al's late at night on a Friday night. Some cats lurking in the background. You got to be paying attention for those people too. But all of those different things that we got to experience working these jobs that have been put into our memory banks that have contributed to our overall experience that impacts just the way we live in our lives now. I think it's really
And
cool.
talk a
It's
little
great.
about your tutoring experience too, Rich. I mean, how that,
Yeah.
aspect of people skills and trying to help those trying to learn skills in a way that will help them later on. How did that impact things too?
I think obviously that's kind of where I ended up, right? I had a detour of being a trial lawyer for about a decade before I got into education as a profession. That was something that I don't even recall how it began other than just that was something I always did because I started out, like I said, I'm on the block. There's probably 10, 12 kids all around us in ages from like a seventh, sixth grade or a little younger all the way through senior in high school for years. The faces changed some, but it was just that many kids on our block or the block behind us. And so it started out with me just over time always being the brainiac, as they called me on the block and those kind of things. So if somebody asked a question and I answered it. And over time that evolved into me helping one particular neighbor with his math. And then that turned into his mom said, how much would you charge me for you to tutor him on a regular basis? And so we reached an agreement and I was over there all the time working with him and then a couple other classmates. So that's when that started. And it's something that went on even like when I was in college. I would volunteer at different places. My girl Kim, I ain't gonna say last names again. We
Yeah.
keep that kind of, she, the artist.
Yeah. Oh,
We
yeah.
would, she and I would go to this one not-for-profit spot and tutor kids, but I did it in Chicagoland area as well as when I was down in Champaign in college. Just something that I guess, but it makes sense, right? Not just because this is where I ended up, but
Mm-hmm.
my mom literally taught on every level from
Mm-hmm.
elementary school, high school, college, doctoral students. My brother's an eighth grade math teacher to this day, right? So we have become a family of educators. My father even, he was primarily a truck driver, but he was the trainer, right? He trained people at buses, trucks, all of that. So it was just kind of in my blood, I guess. And that turned out it was something I'm pretty good at,
Mm-hmm.
facilitating learning. It's something that I enjoy doing. So I've always liked that.
Yeah, I think you've even said how that helped you to understand what it means to have patience, yet also be able to advocate for those who are in need, man. And I
Hmm.
applaud you for that and I always admired you for that skill of yours
Mm-hmm.
as well, too, my brother. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even for us, when we had assignments and stuff going on, I'd reach to you and say, yo, bro, tell me, how do we do this? You understand this problem a little bit better than I do. So help explain it. And you would have a way about doing that. No
Mm-hmm.
qualms about it as well. And I think
Yeah.
I've seen you continue in that aspect as well. So
What
that's
I have
outstanding.
appreciated most about Hollis in that regard is that he has an ability to take complicated things and subjects and concepts
Mm-hmm.
and put them in a way that that is easy to understand. That there's like this thinking about what it even means to be smart. Like to me, that even to this day is one of the things that it's not the words you use. It's not, it's are you able to say what you need to say in a way, even if it's complicated, say it in a way that people can understand, even if they don't get the jargon, they don't get that. And Hollis has always had that in spades.
Thank you,
And I want
brother.
to say for you, GK, I mean, it was in high school and at that time especially, you've always had a way with words, bruh. I mean, you would bring out words, from the dictionary and it's like, what the what? you know, but you said it so effortlessly as well. But I think that was, who you were. I mean, you were into the newspapers, listening to the
Right.
news,
It wasn't
you know.
pretentious. It was just
Right.
very interesting and different for me to know this black kid that was so young but always had, like the New York Times or the Washington, just some, major paper. Not
Hmm.
even the Sun Times or the
Right.
Tribune because they're written for people with lower reading levels. Greg was going for the much meatier publications
Well,
Right.
when we were
that's
in
how
high
it
school.
led me into, writing for the pageant, which was, of course, our high
Hmm.
school newspaper. I was first the sports editor, but it was my English teacher, it was a white woman.
I
Miss
remember Miss
We
Becko,
were
Becko.
in our English
yes.
together, and she
Yes.
was like,
Miss
Yes.
Becko
she
was
saw something in
contributed
my
to my
writing,
problem.
whatever, and she was like, you should join, you should write for the paper. I'm like, for real? Okay, fine. And that's kind of what
Miss
Hmm.
started
Becko
that
used to let me
journey.
sleep in class.
She did.
I used to sit in the front row and I would go to sleep and I would stretch my feet out and
Hmm.
she at first she was stepping over my feet and eventually she got tired of stepping over my feet. So
Made
she
you sit
moved
in the
me to the
back.
back of the class, to
Right.
the back. Still let me sleep, but just moved me to the back. So I wasn't impeding her. I'm like, what? Let's see. I'm like, this is enabling this poor
Right.
behavior.
You're right.
No effort. What? No effort to wake me up in class.
No, but there was some like, but
She
it
was a great
was,
teacher though.
she saw something, right? And that is the other thing I would want to make. She saw something that I hadn't put together anything about journalism in that regard. I just knew I liked to read a lot and like to be hip to
Hmm.
current events. But she put the seed in my head that, no, you can write your opinions, you can do this and do
Hmm.
that. So she saw something in my writing even back then. Again, I don't think I was like a great writer or anything back then. She always told me not to get lost in the sauce and the floweriness. Like, it's the ideas that count, not so much the language underneath it. And so that gave me the confidence to even think about writing at all, right? So
Wow,
that's what
Miss.
I try to think now. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I can't say her first name, but yeah, Miss Becko, she looked after us.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's true. And again, I think as we reminisce on some of this as well, I think we still can bring it to the fold to say that how all aspects of that helped us to just continue to realize that, we didn't need the applause. We didn't need the trumpet sounding. We didn't need the shout outs. We just did. We tutored, we served, we performed, and we learned and we grew as a result of that, and a lot we did together in that aspect as well. And maybe people were watching. Obviously, they were because, like you said, GK, that was, it's Becco saying, "Hey, you got a knack for this thing. You need to be doing this more often." And we never know, who's watching us.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we should always know there's somebody watching us, as
Hmm.
well. So I think we've always been mindful about that as well. So again, I just I give you credit. I give you the applause, and I appreciate, the responsibility of all of that without again even realizing that that was all happening as well. So kudos, brothers,
I
kudos
think,
as well.
yeah, and I think it's appropriate and necessary for us to give each other applause.
Yep.
Again, that's staying internal.
Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, the fascinating thing. No, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it's really about, again, just an exchange of ideas or putting more possibilities out there. If I know, when we're talking about what we're doing, we're talking about it for the purposes of, hey, this is something that I'm doing. It might be something you want to look at too, as opposed to look at what I'm doing. Let me show off and say, hey, I'm fancy, fancy. I mean, because half the time, I mean, frankly, I'm excited and proud of you two for the things that you're doing. And when I see what you're doing, I'm usually not hearing about it from you. which
Mm-hmm.
is really cool. I mean, I'll turn on the TV and I see Greg on TV. Look at my boy, that's my boy, you know. So I'm taking
Yep.
pictures of
Yep.
the TV screen, right? So I can, I posted on Facebook later. Yeah, look at my boy over here doing this thing, you know, or
Yep.
whatever. That's my role. I'm supposed to do that for y'all when y'all are doing great things. You're not supposed to be sitting there saying, "Hey, look at me, look at me."
Right.
So you know,
Right. It goes
Humility.
back to one of our
Humility.
previous conversations about mentorship. Remember, GK, how you said, you don't quite consider yourself a mentor. It's how others, look as you as being that for them as well. So
mhm.
that's aspects of service as well, too, bro. But I knew you were getting ready to say something too. I don't want to cut you off.
No. I was just gonna say I'm always struck by how it was just how we all kind of found our own path, like our own unique sort of path and direction, and how we almost like come together like Voltron. It's a heck of a
Yeah.
thing. All different kind of paths, all different kinds of approaches. Wasn't like we were all trying to be like each other. Everybody was
Right.
like, I got to be my own person, right? Do it how
Right.
I do it. But needing that and appreciating sort of the support that we've given each other over the years, just a remarkable thing.
Yeah. So, what do y'all think about how our time in athletics may have contributed to some of our roles of service as well? So, Rich, what you think? How you feel that being on the basketball team may have had some impact as it relates to service?
Well, a couple of ways I come to mind specifically the notion of being part of a team, right? You know, you played tennis, which is primarily individual, though you do have opportunities to team up. But basketball, in its formal form, right, in its competitive form, predominantly is a team sport. Or in the most rarest of it is about the team versus individuals, right? And the other team could have have a really talented player on there, but a really good team can shut that player down, right? So you learn how to work effectively as a team. You learn how to deal with people that you may not like. Right? There are different personalities on a team, and
Mm-hmm.
again, I joined the team of a legendary program, right? It's rare for somebody at Providers Luis. If you don't make the squad as a freshman, you don't usually ever make it. For one freshman, there are two teams. There's an A team and a B team, which gets compressed down into one sophomore team, right? And then you got JV and varsity. So just the numbers get cut in half. If you don't make the squad as a freshman, half the cats that made the squad as freshmen don't make it as a sophomore, right? Because the numbers just get cut down. So I came into a situation where, I knew most of these cats because we all went to school together, right? But several of them I didn't know. And some of them I might have met before, seen before. Some of them I didn't flat out know at all. And just new personalities, learning people and all of that. So again, being one of the new person on the team in a situation that's already established, that there were corollaries in real life later that I learned that I've dealt with in work situations when somebody new comes along and there's this internal vetting process that naturally has to happen, right, with all of the people on the team. And situations where sometimes people get protected, and there's all kinds of instances where that played out. I think another piece for me, John, was learning to be aggressive. Playing basketball, and translating that. I'll give you the example. You guys knew Mark. I know Greg did. I don't know if John,
Yeah.
if you ever met Mark, but my first boss when I first
Yeah.
started, when I first started practicing law, he would often, when we would prepare for trials or to argue appeals, when he was throwing me out there into the fire and we were preparing, he would often reference me playing basketball. When you get in there, I need you to think about like if you were going to the basket or these kind of things. He wanted me to be emotionally aggressive in certain situations. You think about being a trial lawyer and about maintaining this kind of flat level with your
Definitely.
emotions and that, but there are certain times when engaged in argument, when you're trying to convince someone where emotion has a place. Right. And then if you're representing a client, I can remember distinctly a time where I had a client who, just because of the manner in which I was arguing, his case. When we left out of there, he was just so excited, irrespective of the outcome, just because of the way I was advocating on his behalf.
Mm-hmm.
So there, you learn how to be forceful, learn how to be appropriately aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Because sports, right? Modern day sports take the place of gladiator life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sociologists talk about this kind of stuff that we have built into us, this innate need to do aggressive things.
Battle.
And so sports became the outlet for us because
Mm-hmm.
we're not fighting animals in the wild anymore
Mm-hmm.
or other things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of
Right.
us, right? You got soldiers and wars and battles, and those are still places where they get to do that stuff. But the average person, it might be sports. So, learning to be appropriately aggressive, learning to be a good team member, learning what a good leader looks like, what a good follower looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I think both leading and following are lessons that I learned because, again, I keep referencing that, but when you are part of a legendary program,
Mm-hmm.
there's a culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cultures matter in so many
Right.
different aspects of organizations, organizational culture, things like that. So when you are brought into a culture that's already existing, that's functioning well, that's doing that, you get carried along. Hey, how you doing? This is the way we do things here. Come on.
Right.
And so then you learn, and that learning, that progression of learning is in part because of this system, this culture. So we're going to guarantee that everybody that comes through here has a certain level of competency. Then there are going to be others within that who excel even more and get to that extra special. But when you have achieved this level just with your organization, everybody's dope.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you learn. And so that's something that I learned through that process.
I appreciate that. And GK, with track, you speak highly of it and emotionally your attachment to that. Speak a little bit more on that and how you felt.
When he speaks on it, before he speaks on it, I got to give you a little context to the world when we talk about just, again, culture, organizationally, just how cold that track team experience was, right?
Yeah.
I'm a junior. The track coach walks into the basketball court while we're practicing one day. He says, Holloway, come here. I come over there and he's like, jump up there and grab the rim. I jump up and I grab the rim. I could do that, but I wasn't no high flyer, but I'm tall enough and I had a little athleticism. I did that. He said, come out for track this summer and I'll have you dunking with your elbows. I was like, okay, coach. As soon as he left the gym, I was like, man, I ain't messing with that crazy man. Because I've seen what they were doing. The way they used to run through the building, through the high school building. And, it's Chicagoland. It's the wintertime. You can't run out in the cold. So they ran through the building. He came in and took over our class one day when our coach wasn't there, gym class, and we was like, man, put out the balls, Veronella, put out the balls. And he wouldn't. He made us duck walk for the whole hour, that kind of stuff. Just the torture that they had to go through. But that's how you create Olympic athletes, man. They were some cold individuals.
Man, I'm going to say his name, Charles Farinella, man.
Charles Farinella.
Yes.
I wish I had gone in with him that summer, because if I had, I'd have been an NBA player. But I was too lazy at that point. I didn't want to put that much work in.
Yeah, I know.
We were talking about all the work we did. I didn't want to put that much work in, but if I had, I'd have been an NBA player.
He was rough.
Tim Simon,
he did it. Yep. Tim Simon.
To go back to what Tim Simon was the Olympian. Tim them were a little old. Craig Van Dyke.
He was killing. He was down at Illinois. He was killing Illini basketball players on the side.
Yeah.
They was like, dude, why don't you come play? Why don't you come play basketball? And he could have easily had no interest in it. No
had
interest
none.
in it.
He said, I'm just going to go and be an Olympian.
I'm
going to be an Olympian.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But those are the guys, they were like a couple years older than us. So but we were always, so to this question of what, I think the one thing that track team did for me, it gave me a sense of pride. Like we were proud of our track team. Like, we would, and it's funny now to reflect on, but Proviso East, we were overwhelmingly black school and the track team was overwhelmingly black. And the conference we were in at the time was pretty much all white, except for like West and a little bit of Oak Park. And so we go to meets, and it's the black Proviso East team. We would always do one lap around the track as our sort of motivating thing. and we'd go around the track, proviso, east, proviso. I mean, that was like our thing. We're here, you know.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that is that sense of pride of like, yeah, we, you know, we ain't the richest school, you know, our
Mm-hmm.
uniforms aren't the dopest,
Mm-hmm.
but we gonna go, y'all gonna know we here kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is really something that stayed with me, you know. And then like, man, the greatest event, I say the greatest single event of all sports is the 4x400 meter relay. That's
Mm-hmm.
teamwork. That's like, it's the
Right.
last event of the meet and everybody's watching. Everybody's watching that. And so to be on a 4x400 meter relay team is like something that's
Mm-hmm.
fresh in my head. I can go for a run now and think about being on the relay, you know, being on the mile relay or seeing Tim Simon and them on the mile relay. It just
Mm-hmm.
stays with you because it put a put the competitive juice, I think, that most of us sort of have naturally
Mm-hmm.
in a place, and it can, you know, you can put your effort into something, you can see progress. And so that
Mm-hmm.
coach for Anella, he scared the hell out of us most of the time. But it was also true that when we did really well, he was the first one to be like, I'm so proud of y'all, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that is really a big part of sort of for my young self, why track mattered so much to me. And then it was just like, you know, when you're getting better and he can see the progression and he's like, yo, you doing, you know, I see what you did there, blah, 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 blah. And so that
Mm-hmm.
to a, you know, 15, 16-year-old kid, that gives you confidence. It does all the things in the world for you. So, you know, and I was getting
Mm-hmm.
better and better. And
That's
so
it.
I'm grateful
That's
for
it.
that
So
experience.
that's good. That's good.
That old
Yeah.
that old
And
Italian that Italian Chuck Frednella, that was all him. All him. By
Holler at
then,
us
nah.
about tennis,
by the
John.
time I was finished, much I'm like, man, I could beat anybody anywhere. Like, come on, let's go. Because
Right.
I used to get very nervous during, you know, track meets.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I just didn't. That was the one thing I never sort of developed on the track was like that killer instinct. So always, when I saw athletes who have it, it's just always been impressive to me because I would get really nervous,
Mm-hmm.
and so I take it with me in other environments now, not so much on the track. It's like
Mm-hmm.
because I still get
There you
nervous when I
go.
run my little runs, but
There you
I was
go.
nervous because I wasn't very athletic. In pretty much every matchup, whoever I matched up with was more athletic than me.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the game was always very tactical.
Mm-hmm.
It was always about I was thinking and I was shooting. You know, for me, you know, when we were in high school, I used to have this thing I called the Holloway School of Shooting because that was, you know, that was the focus for me. But it was because I was not athletic, relatively speaking, you know,
yeah,
especially in the face of, like I said, this program. So I was not the most athletic, but I was fairly tall. So I had that going for me. But to your point about being, I guess, more just kind of naturally aggressive, I had to learn that or learn that along the way because that wasn't my nature. But John, talk to us about translate tennis to how that
yeah,
became.
Nah. Yeah. So tennis for me was really more of the team aspect as well. So with tennis, you know, we played singles and we played doubles as well. And I preferred doubles more than I did singles. But with it, you had to have that aggression. You had to have that killer instinct. You had to, you know, say when I'm gonna charge the net, try to get this point at times as well. But with doubles, you had to work together. You had to, you know, work together in order to reach the goal type deal. And then you had to understand what each person was trying to do to get to that goal as well. So teamwork and then strategy came along with that as well. But I think strategy really came about while playing on the chess team. That
mm,
was where I really can say strategy came into play, but it helped us to develop critical thinking, you know, in a
mm,
way where you've got to plan what's going to get ready to
Right.
happen. You got to
That
start to
patience
see
too.
what's happened, that patience, you know, along with that as well.
mm,
And I still use that today, you know, in medicine. You know, we have to think about, okay, if I get this started for somebody, be it a medicine, be it a therapy, I've got to already think, okay, what are potential outcomes that can happen with this person that we have to be prepared for as well, too. But then I also have to have that sense of patience because, folks have what they have as their needs, their wants, when they're coming in, they're not feeling well. Yeah, I may be on a time schedule, but I can't give you that perception that I'm on a time schedule because that's not fair to you and what's going on with you. So I give you that aspect of I'm here. I'm here for you. Let's talk about you. Let's get you taken care of at this point. But I'm already thinking, okay, what are we going to need to maybe do here? What testament am I going to have to probably order to help us figure this out or rule something out? And then that therapy and what this person really be able to tolerate, this therapy or what that looks like as well. But I want to say that, going back to playing chess, playing tennis, it helped me to be able to have that skill set in order to be able to take care of people, but also in my administrative role, as well. I have to be able to come up with ideas, planning strategy. How is this clinic going to perform? How do we talk to these providers who are all different people, but yet get it into a way that we're all working as a team, as well too. And I think that experience has helped along with being at McDonald's. When you get to that point and get to a level, at least a crew chief, you got to be able to understand. All right, I know what this person is going to excel at, but I know that this person may not be as great on the register for this. So I may not have that person working the register this day, but maybe doing something, with the grill or cleanup or whatever that looks like, because that's where their skill set is at this point, and it's understanding how to navigate that as well. So
Hmm.
all of that again, I wasn't thinking about that stuff at that time, but definitely can reflect back on, wow, that's kind of had some impact on how I'm able to manage, now in this world as well. So,
Lessons that we learned that translate. One of the things we talk about with students all the time is transferable skills, right? You learn something in this context, but now we're going to take it and we're going to put it over here and use it. And so, like I said earlier, we were living a Mr. Miyagi process. We were wax on and wax off in these roles that were preparing us for later. And then it was just like it was for him, right? It was like, oh, wow, I could actually do that when I didn't even know I had it in me because I didn't know I was learning it. I was just living. But it's that the practicing these skills, communicating, listening, all of these important things that we develop that help us to serve people in our current roles, right? Oh, I'm a believer in the notion of servant leadership, and so
Yep.
I think
me as
Yep.
that
well.
as
Yep.
a
Me
I
too.
think as a
Me too.
leader, your role is to try to create the best environment for the people that you're working with to do their thing and to flourish.
Hmm.
And so I've got a few people that I do one-on-ones with, they're not all direct reports because of our structure, but conversation is the same. So some of them, their direct report is somebody else, but they got a dotted line to me or something. But the conversation is the same. And it's talked about, we shoot the shit for a little bit, right? You got to have the actual relationship piece. But then when we're talking about the actual work of the day and this and that, it's always, what do you need? What can I do for you? Are the main questions I'm asking. What can I do for you? What do you need so that you can do what you need to do? Because I think that's just part of what it is to be an effective leader.
I agree with you. And, GK, you're definitely leading in the labor aspect of things at this point. Tell us what your thoughts are about how you have to perform in that role, but you're a service to many in that
Hmm.
role as well.
No,
What do you think about that as we're doing now?
I all invariably sometimes, in a rush, I don't, but I invariably say I serve as, that's how I introduce because it really is, you serve, not simply because technically I'm an elected officer, but it truly is a function. The role is a function of leading people, but also serving them. And I'm one of those people who think that the best way to learn how to be a leader is through service. And, I don't care what kind of service it is, even if it's just not within a title, right? Or if it's just
Mm-hmm.
like trying to understand what people might need and how you can help them get what they need. And sort of at
Mm-hmm.
least having that in the forefront of your mind is to me an important part of the roles. Yeah, to me it's nothing without service. And I think you become a better leader after having served. And so you're always serving because you want to be a better leader. And so that's what I always try to keep in the forefront of my mind. And, when I talk to staff and I talk to other people, it's always like we're here in service to, right? Not ourselves, right? Like we want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
People work hard. They deserve to get paid. They
Right.
deserve time off, good benefits, all of that, right? But we should never think it's just about us, right? We are here in
Right.
service to our members, right? And our mission. And then if you can keep that in the forefront of your mind, we'll be more successful. People will be more willing to listen to you and work with you. But I do think that culturally in this moment, and it's been evolving over time, that's a harder thing to get people to understand that it is in fact through service that you lead. But it's something that I'm a firm believer in.
It's because the world is trending towards more and more selfishness on a daily
Yes,
basis.
correct, correct. It's about me all the time, all the time.
Right. I have that conversation often with med students, residents and new docs that are coming into their new clinic settings that, we got to remember while we're in this field. I mean, we're in this field to be service to others. I mean, that's truly what medicine is that. And we do so again without expecting the fanfare or anything else to come with that as well. This is just who we are. And I have to have that conversation with them to say, look, we don't leave until we've taken care of our people. And sometimes, I really have to have a sit down because they're wanting to head out at 5 o'clock because of whatever type deal that you finish taking care of this person who needs you and has come to you for your expertise and help that they're not going to be able to get, otherwise type deal. So sometimes you may not be able to leave at 5 o'clock in order to get that done. But that's the part where I think for our generation,
Yeah.
I think we learned it differently. And I'm not sure what happened, quote, along the way. But I get it. I understand that it's healthy and it's helpful to be aware of self and what that need is too. But in certain fields, you've got to be able to sway. You got to be able to say, okay, today it's not going to be all about me and what I got to do. That effort is going to be put towards making sure we take care of people and hopefully help them feel better than how they felt when they came in type deal as well. So
Well, it's funny.
it's a
I
hard
feel like
role.
I feel like that's one of the things you learn from having worked at fast food, right? Restaurant, say Al's closed at 10 o'clock, right? But you couldn't leave until everything was done. It
Exactly.
wasn't no,
Right.
okay, it's 10 o'clock, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
Sometimes you
Right.
closing the
because
doors at
everything had to
10:10.
be everything had to be shiny for when we
Right.
opened in the morning.
Exactly.
No overtime either, by the way.
Exactly.
Not that
Right.
I'm
I
not
mean,
not
it,
that
but
I
eh,
think that was right, but it's just
right.
that's just the way in which we came up.
Right. And that's just part. And again, there's no right to wrong to it. It's just a matter of kind of understanding, where we are when it comes to these type of things and
It's an
why it's,
orientation,
something
by the
that
way.
we just value.
After a while, it becomes an orientation, right? Like, okay, I know that
Right.
my leave
Yeah.
time's at 10, but I want to get the job done first, right? Like that. It's a
Right.
different
Hmm.
sort of my shift over at 10. Okay, but this has got
Right.
to
I'm
get
out.
done. So what? Like, yeah, it's a
That is true. That is true. And then in your field, I mean, education to me has always been the key to all of this. Without being able to be educated, I mean, I'm not going to be able to be a doctor, without that as well. You be an attorney, GK being in the field where he has to understand how to navigate political and work related systems, in a way that's advocating for the people as well. What you do, Rich, I mean, that's just highly important and doesn't get enough of the acknowledgement that it needs to get, just to be straight and honest with you as well. I mean, that service
Well, it's
is
been right now,
golly,
right?
right, and always
Yeah.
attacked. I mean, unfortunately, we like don't appreciate the fact that, we all have to be educated.
Well, I said that phrase before, the stupidification of America.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing it happening the rate is increasing right now. The
Rapidly.
decimation of the Department of Education, this notion that we're going to hand it all back to the states, and there are so many states who are deficient at this moment, in terms of their state departments of education, and we're going to allegedly turn everything back over to them. That's a whole nother conversation. But what we're seeing is that this notion that we still have to do better, right? We've still got to be 4 times better, 10 times better, all of that still hasn't changed for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we had the conversation as part of the mentorship episode about, the changing nature of the needs that our nation, our employers, what their needs are for our educated society. And we're seeing that, so much is changing about college, trade schools, other alternatives. At the end of the day, whatever path someone is choosing that relates to a career, we still know that there's a basic level of education that we need to be a well functioning society. And we are moving in the wrong direction as a society
Yeah.
in that regard. I think the basic level of education that everyone should have so that society is functioning well, probably 30% of this nation is at that level now. So, like you said, the work is important, the work needs to continue, but more so not at the level I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
College and university education is important, but again, as we talked, that's only for a portion of people. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody needs that basic education, and they need that strong foundation. Everything. What was that one book? I learned everything I needed to learn in kindergarten or first grade or whatever. I forget. But the notion of those important foundational pieces are being destroyed as well. When you talk about the decimation of the Department of Education, it's not as painful a deal for colleges and universities. The money, right?
Yeah.
Department of Education's role in large part is
Mm-hmm.
facilitating the funds,
Loans and so
right?
forth. Yeah.
And student loans and all of that kind of stuff. At the lower levels, the Department of Education played a much bigger role
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about
K through
setting national
12 and
standards
special
and
needs and
K
so
through
forth. Yep.
12. And
Right.
yes, all of those things. And those are the most important when you're talking about the populace, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want a well-educated, the average guy is well-educated to a basic standard that we see in other countries, then you might not have the foolishness that we're living through right now, right? Where you got this person talking about, I love uneducated people. Why? Because you like them? No, because they're much easier
Hold them.
to exploit and
Mm-hmm.
control.
Exactly.
So yeah, I appreciate that. It is an important thing, and I enjoy my role in it. And again, it's a service role. I look at myself as serving two groups. I serve the faculty who serve the students. So I serve the students indirectly through my service to the faculty as an administrator.
Brothers, this has been a great conversation as well. And what I'm gonna
Hmm.
ask, we all some long-winded brothers for some reason, but I'm gonna ask y'all to just give me give me a
No, not
few
any, not any.
words. A few words, brothers. Just to kind of wrap it up and kind of reflect
Hmm.
on what we've had to say today. Rich, I'm gonna start with you as well, my brother.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll give you a couple of words. Well, first, law and education are both about advocating for people who don't always have a voice, right? So in education, I'm teaching them how to speak for themselves, but as a lawyer, I was doing the speaking for them. But my closing reflection, humility and responsibility are my two words. Humility and responsibility. Humility, tying back to the biblical quote you gave us at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. We're doing this service not because we want a light shined on us.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this service because that's what we do, and it's
Mm-hmm.
for the benefit of our community. And responsibility. It's our responsibility to support and to serve our community and our greater and the wider world, right? I
Right.
think so.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Greg, what you thinking, brother?
I'm thinking that an individual voice matters, but it is those individual voices coming together collectively that really
Mm-hmm.
will make a difference. And, people are who they are. We all are individuals and we all have our own unique set of personalities, et cetera, even our own sets of desires and wishes. But I think that we know in this country that when people come together and they exercise their voices and their talents and their skills collectively, that they have far
Mm-hmm.
more opportunity to be successful than if they did it sort of by themselves. And so I guess I would just say, your voice matters. Voices together matter, especially for those people who haven't been heard historically and in this present moment. And so, I think it starts younger and believing that your voice makes a difference, like seeing sort of some views on the board really matter. Even
Mm-hmm.
if they're small wins, even to be able to reflect and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I did this well, and I won this or I
Mm-hmm.
accomplished this. To say, as Malcolm said, right, if you've seen yourself do something, you believe you can continue to do something. Or if you don't think you ever done anything, you'll never do anything. So building that muscle and that faith based upon your lived experience and coming together with people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, but speaking collectively on things that you all share in common. That just feels really, really important. And I think service is what the avenue we use to effectuate that.
Much appreciated, brothers. And we started off with the reference to again Matthew chapter 6 verses 2 through 4 to help shape and guide our conversation today. You said it earlier, Greg. Rich, you uplifted it even more, and that is, through service to others is how we become leaders, amongst men as well. And I believe that for me, this conversation really reinforced that aspect of service that we do is so highly important, but it doesn't need to be loud, for it to be impactful. And I think, and I hope that for our listeners, they felt that and can appreciate that as well. We didn't
And
know
our
it then.
viewers.
And our
And our
viewers, that's
viewers
true.
now
Thank you
too.
so
Yeah.
much. And our viewers now as well. But we didn't know, we didn't know it then. But those times that we spent behind counters, in the classrooms, in the newsrooms, on the practice fields, courts, and the tracks that we were on, these were all training grounds for us, brothers. I think we've learned that all that time has led to who we've become and how we've been able to continue that servant leadership as well. And the work we did it quietly, but I know it spoke volumes. You see what I'm saying? We did it quietly, but it spoke volumes, brothers. And we still
Can I
show
say
up
one thing
today.
to that too? One more thing
Yeah.
on that, John,
Mm-hmm.
just as for our listeners and our viewers to invite, because I think we all have stories. And I think it's often, and I'm hoping that people reflect on their own personal journeys and find those kinds of sparks that can help them, even in moments of challenge, to see what they've been able to do in the past so that they can continue to regenerate themselves and create more opportunities for others going forward. Because I think we all have those kind of stories.
And we've even
Agreed.
had a few folks comment in that aspect, and we appreciate those comments. We now have our Facebook page that's up, is there for comments as well. And on that note, I will say again, thank you to our listeners and our viewers as well for listening and viewing another episode of Raw and Refined, The Gentleman's Hour.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, brothers. Peace.